Hey guys, thanks for joining. This time I'll show you how Rete editor works. I'll introduce you to some of its features and let's get into it. Okay, so first thing is that you can search for components with the search toolbar. Of course, in the beginning, you're not really sure what you're searching for, so you can go through these categories and analyze algorithms that we give to you. But this time I'll also go and just click this things button. I'll go into the category of furniture, tables. Elegant table is the only table that we have at the moment. And I'll just say, let's create the elegant table. Okay, so this is the table, right? I'll scale it a little. So let's scale it 10 times. And you see now that we've created a table. And if I click this button, I enter the 3D space where I can rotate and inspect everything about this table. It is a parametric table, which means that you can just play around with this component immediately and say, yeah, I want a 3-meter table maybe, and that will make a 3-meter table. If you want to, for example, limit the fillets of the corners, you can do that by changing this variable here and just focus out, and then the script updates, right? So now the fillet is a bit smaller. Not sure you noticed the difference, but if I make it really large, maybe then that would be even more noticeable. So let's do 0.3, and you see that this is quite a big radius, right? It does affect where the legs go. We can control more things, like we can say that the top thickness needs to be much bigger, for example. That would create this top part. It's really thick. And yeah, so you see the edges as well. It's a real CAD model. It can be exported to step file, STL, GLB, whichever you prefer. And we can also go further even and control the amount of leg pairs that we have. So maybe if the table is pretty long, you know, you need extra support in the middle. And this is the way you can configure your table. Having said that, it's a single component now in 3D space, and we can, of course, create more things. So let's just add a Skybox. So let's type a Skybox. You always see this babylon.scene.enable Skybox. So this is the full path to the component. And if you, for example, click this help button, you would go to our help files to read about the parameters and inputs and everything about it. So let's also create a grid to give us a bit of a ground feeling, right? You see how easy it is to create a skybox in the grid. That makes your model space much nicer. And also you can just change, for example, to city kind of environment if you prefer that. You can also increase a bit of blur. So let's make it 0.5. And you see that now it's nice and blurry. I also always like to create a light, so directional light, for example. So it's also gonna create a shadow, and the shadows are not yet visible because we have a ground that is just a grid. To create a real ground, we'll create a face, so rectangle face, and let's make it 50 by 50. And you see that it's red, and while this is quite cool, you already see a bit of a shadow. We should make it white to give a bit nicer looking environment to ourselves. So let's draw this with a different kind of options, and that will work like this. So we connect this component, and we say that we want to use a white color. And also I'll just leave it like that. So now it's white, you see the shadow, and the model is looking quite cool. So you now see that we can compose those algorithms, we can connect the wires, so we can also extract information from the things that we create. Also worth noting is that when you click on the component, you see that your geometry is highlighted, the currently active geometry. So if I click on the draw, you see that now my ground is highlighted. And this is quite a nice way to identify the objects in your 3D environment. Okay, so I mentioned that it's not only possible to connect those wires, but it's also possible to extract information from your designs. And in this case, what we can do, of course, we can just first look at the things that we have, and we have a JSON preview of the things that we create. And that means that you can just scroll through the information in here. There's a lot, like for this table, we expose quite a lot of information. And that is also evident if we go to the furniture tables, elegant table. You see here that we have quite a few components that help you extract the data from this table. So for example, if you want to know what's the top center point of this table, you just do this and you connect these two components. And now you see that there's a small dot on the top of the table, which represent its center. So here it is. Okay, so we have this table with the top point on it, and what we can do is, for example, place a vase on this point. So we can just do this by creating Arabic arcway vase. And you see that it's quite big, so I'll make it smaller. So let's use an vector x, y, z. And let's type 0.3, 0.3, 0.3. That's gonna be our scale. I'll just plug it in here. And you see that the vase is now smaller. Another thing that I'll do is I'll just plug this origin of the vase to be connected here. And now you see that the vase sits nicely on top of this table. And that's quite cool. You see that there's also a shadow. The shadow is not of the best quality, as you see now. So what you can do is go here, and in the directional light, the light creates the shadow, right? So you can just type 2056, for example, for a shadow, or even larger number. It is quite an expensive thing to do, but yeah, you can just do it like that. And let's go ahead, and we can also just say that we want more subdivisions for the vase. So you see that you can basically not only create models, but also use the data, parse those models in a way that you see fit. You can extract data. So in this case, we extracted the top center point. We can also go ahead and extract things like legs, for example. So if I want to have a leg by index, I can do it like this. So let's do it. So now we should see the first leg red, and if I click this, you see that the leg turns green. And if I go and increase the index, then I'll just go through all the legs in the model. So this is quite nice. You can just sort of identify the pieces of the model that you would like to use separately. For example, maybe you want to manufacture one leg at a time, or export just a part of the model, for example, as a separate file. That is all possible. So these scenes that you create, they can be exported to GLB files, of course, for gaming. You can also export step files, STLs for 3D printing. Step file is a nice one because, of course, you can import it to a professional CAD software like Rhino or SolidWorks, whatever works for you. Okay, so I think this is a good introduction to Rete. I will show you a bit the project that I've recently created that used more components of Rete. I'll just leave this and go to projects. It is now the first project here, so the table set. And here I used this table component also to create those benches. It's a bit of a interpretation. So let's open the script, and you see that it's a bit more heavy, but not too heavy though, right? So what it does is it combines multiple parametric relationships to create this scene that you see here. So it has a table, it has benches, it has the vase, and it has multiple cups. So what you can do, for example, you can just zoom out and go here, and you see that this slider is connected to the width of the table, and this slider is connected to the length. So if you would like, for example, to go from 2 to 3 meters table, you can do it like this. And now the script is recomputing the table, it recomputes the cups, and everything just adapted. Also the benches, right? Also, if I go ahead and increase the width, you'll see that the table became wider, the cups adapted their positions, and also the benches here became a bit longer because they react to the length of the table. And this way you can build parametric relationships and configurators of procedural scenes and assets. So this is a bit of a showcase of how you can connect those objects into a coherent script. So one thing to note is that all these components that you see for a table, a cup, the vase, they do require you to have a paid subscription, a silver or a gold plan. And only then you can use those in the 3D environment. Having said that, we do have a lot of free components for basic geometry, like, you don't need to create the account if you just want to create a cube and construct the models yourself. But for these advanced 3D models and components that we create, we do ask you to subscribe and sponsor our project. So thank you. And I hope you will subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll like the video, and let's see each other in the next videos. Cheers, guys.